Come on in. Whoa. It's way too close.
Oh, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
What's going on, man? How's it going?
It's going good, dude. It's going good. Sitting out here in my backyard, getting ready to crack a mischief. How you doing?
Very cool. I'm doing pretty good, man. So yeah, it's been a while since we did one of these happy hours, almost a month, I think. But we're back. I think we're gonna keep doing these because people seem to like them. I know you've had quite a day, huh? You did a virtual happy hour earlier with Cloudwater Brewing.
Yeah, I did, but I'm a professional, so that's no big deal for me.
Oh wow!
I'm just telling you the truth.
Yeah.
I've been at this for a while, Daniel.
Oh, well, yeah. I apologize. But yeah, this is going to be a pretty fun show tonight, or live stream, whatever it is. So it's going to be a little different this time. Tonight, we're going to be bringing on some past brewers, and we're going to talk a little bit about beer, but mostly we're going to talk about kind of the journeys that these guys have gone on and where they're at now. And I think it'll be pretty fun because we have some really cool guests tonight. But before we get to that, a little bit of housekeeping. Just want to let everybody know a few things going on. So first and foremost, local deliveries are back up. So we are doing local deliveries again. You can place an order by 2 p.m., get it delivered to your house same day. We just released Sweet Liberty and Brain Pour and Grain Damage. So those are available on our website right now. I'm drinking Grain Damage, pretty good. So it's a hazy IPA. We also have the Father's Day kind of PS box, so you can join Preservation Society, and for Father's Day, you get a cool glass and a hat, 2 tulips, a glass, 2 tulips and a hat, and your beers, of course. What else is happening? We have some fun stuff coming up in the next few months, so we'll also be having so next month we're really excited for some collaboration beers we did with Chef Brooke Williamson, who was on a few weeks ago. So those are dropping next month. And then if anybody watched our live stream with Derek from Moxa and with Mike from Microphone, so the beer we kind of conceived online, real time, that's dropping next month also. So we got a lot of really cool stuff coming up. I'm pretty excited for that. Anything you're excited for right now, Jeremy? Any beers that are pretty exciting for the members to get their hands on?
Yeah, there is actually. We did our spontaneous, kind of discussion about a month ago as well, maybe a little longer than that. And
Jeremy's kids are on the Wi-Fi. Jeremy, we're losing you.
Sorry,
losing you a little bit, but Onus on Us. I think you were talking about Onus on Us. There we go.
Yeah, I was. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I got a gaggle of kids that are interneting it up. They kind of hinted to the spontaneous beer we had coming out, so I'm pretty proud of this Onus on Us. It's our first 3-year blend, goose style blend. Took us about 4 years to get there, and I'm pretty proud of it, and hoping y'all enjoy it. Grab a bottle. It's good.
Cool. All right. Should we get started? Should we bring somebody on?
We should. Are you? Can you hear me? Am I good right now?
You're clear, dude. You are.
Okay. Cool. So I think one of the things that makes this episode really fun is actually getting to hangouts with our friends, and these are people that have worked at the brewery. And the funny thing is, like, I've been at the brewery for 5 years, and I miss, two of the guys that we're going to talk to today. I never worked with them, but I think it's a testament to not only the beer industry, but the brewery in general, that we become friends over the years. And so, the first person we like to bring on is Jay Goodwin, who I definitely consider one of my favorite people in the beer industry. And Jay is currently the CEO at the Rare Barrel in Berkeley, California. Hi, Jay.
Yeah, what you want me to host instead of Jeremy? No, I can't do that to him. He's one of my best friends in beer. I think he's doing an okay job. I know I'm one of the great hosts in all of beer, but I mean, he's trying his best. Well, I gotta go. Hey guys, it's me, Jay.
Oh boy, I deserve it. I know I deserve it.
What? No. Jay, I was on mute. I was on mute, I think.
Jay, it's nice of you to finally join us. We've been trying to get Jay to join us on this for a couple months now, and he's been too busy and was unable to make time for us. But now, but Jay, thank you seriously. In all seriousness, thanks for coming on. I find your story kind of.
All right.
How did you end up at the brewery? How did that happen?
Oh, well, thanks, Jeremy, and thanks to everyone at the brewery for inviting me on. He's overstating. I've been trolling this live stream for months. I really enjoy tuning in, trying to get my questions answered in the live comments, and I'll definitely be paying attention to your guys' live comments as we go. I really like telling the story of how I started the brewery because it's really like anyone could do this. So I was just out of college. I had a degree in psychology, and I decided I didn't want to do that. So I was looking for what I used to call like a regular job. Like, how can I use psychology? Maybe I'll do like sales or marketing. And I would work on that for like 10 minutes. And then I would start emailing breweries because I needed a part-time job. And I kind of made a list of the best breweries in the area within like 100 miles because I was definitely willing to drive. And speaking of willing to drive, someone else on this chat was willing to drive more than I was. We'll talk to him in a little bit. But, the brewery was at the top of that list. And the smart thing to do would have been start at the bottom and kind of hone my communication skills and contact my least desirable breweries first. But for some reason, I was young and dumb, and I took a shot and contacted the brewery and interviewing with Patrick Rue and Tyler King. They were able to hire me. I told them I would, take minimum wage and mop the floors, whatever. I learned after I got hired that they were kind of saying like, I think this guy can do it. We have that big bottling run of Orchard White on Tuesday, which was going to be, I think, like a 12-hour day, like the biggest bottling run in brewery history. It's probably in like November of 2008. And they're like, yeah, let's get this guy just in for that one day, and then he'll never come back. And it ended up being like, one of the greatest days of my life. I was like, I just got paid for working at a brewery, and my life changed that day. And it's been better every day since because of working at the brewery.
That's not the story I was talking about. I was told that Patrick found you in a Bevmo.
So I was working at Bevmo at the time, and when I think they were thinking about like kind of like giving me more shifts, he like went to that Bevmo. It wasn't too far from where he lived. Yeah. So he like went to that Bevmo and asked around about me. Luckily, I loved working at Bevmo, and I had a really great relationship with my coworkers and loved talking to the customers. So that probably helped me out a little bit too. But that was a good job too. I enjoyed that.
Hey, so I want to bring one of our other friends on. Would you mind introducing this other guy you're talking about that was driving quite a ways to work every day?
Yeah. So this is a guy that I have a lot to say about. It's Doug Constantiner.
Right on, Doug.
Keep going.
Doug, how we doing, man?
You're on mute, man. Can't let it keep going.
First timer here. I'm no seasoned professional host like Jay.
Right.
But things are going, given everything that's going in the outside world, stuff like this makes me really happy and kind of gets me back to my happy place. So it's really good to see you guys. I'm honored to be on this. I've been looking forward to it since y'all sent out that email.
Yeah, a month ago. I'm sorry about all.
It's Jeremy's fault. He's just really happy you're frozen.
Yeah. Hey, so Doug, you want to tell us a little bit about how you got to the brewery?
Sure. So I won't go too far back. I won't take up as much time as Jay. One, I'll make my story shorter and I'll talk a little bit faster. But at 18 years old, I knew I wanted to start a brewery one day. So set my sights on making a shit ton of money in the quote unquote real world and then retiring early and having a second career. So I double majored in finance and entrepreneurship, worked my way. I landed a job on Wall Street, doing investment banking. And then after a couple years of that, decided I needed to make, the change now and not when I'm 45. So packed up my stuff and moved out to San Diego with the goal of learning the trade. And once I felt comfortable enough of, experience, knowledge, all that, then I'd start my own brewery. During that time, I worked at Green Flash, PP Port OGs, and there was a job opening on Pro Brewer for a cellarman on the brewery, at the brewery. So I said, yeah, hell yeah. This is like the beer nerd's brewery. And I guess I still am a beer nerd, but I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. It's an hour away from me, but, why not? So I had the interview, and I remember meeting Jay and Travis there, who I ended up starting society with. And it was like these two dudes with big beards. And at the time, I had a big beard, bigger than Jay's now, for the record. And I remember the interview was with Tyler and Patrick, and I was just blown away by how cool everything was. And I was just starstruck. I mean, the brewery was like a year and a half old or something. Is that right? Jay? About then? Yeah, I mean, there were two guys in production. So interviewed there, got the cellarman job. It was 3 days a week. So I was still at Pizza Port and OGs at the time. And I wanted to go full time. And the only way I was able to do that was I offered to wash kegs at nighttime, because at that time there was one little instant water heater, and we couldn't wash kegs and brew at the same time. So I started out washing kegs on the bottling line. Funny enough, my first day was a 16-hour day. And I remember Jay cracking up, like, everybody who starts here has like the shittiest first day ever. It was a 16-hour hot and raw bottling day. And same thing, I walked away, I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever done. That was awesome. And so I knew I wanted to be a part of that company and that brewery. So hell yeah, I wanted to wash kegs at nighttime. If that gave me 2 more days a week, I would do it. So that's how I ended up at the brewery. And it was, I look back, it was probably the hardest labor I've ever done in my life, with the longest hours, but some of the best times of my whole entire life. I mean, the three of us, including Tyler, but the three of us on the floor doing more than we should have was absolutely incredible, and making just really fantastic beers. It's mind blowing to see where the brewery is now. I mean, I know the beer got a lot better once I left, so that was a good move on my part, but it's really cool. I'm happy to be a part of the history. Do you want me to keep going?
I can't tell if Jeremy's frozen or like
frozen.
I think he is. He's kind of there. Jeremy, can you hear us?
I could hear you. I'm sorry.
You're good, man. You're back.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. I thought he was just like really interested in the story for a second.
It was an interesting story. Much more interesting than Jay's. Which is actually not true. They're both very interesting. We got one more guy I'd like to bring on who's actually spent some time working with both of you, which I never got to do, but I did get to work with this other gentleman. We have our buddy Victor Lester from Mammoth Brewing Company.
What's up?
Hey, what's up, Victor?
Just hanging out, living a life.
You sure are, man. I love
Trying
watching.
to, at least.
I love watching what you're doing up there. You're living the dream.
Yeah, working for the weekend.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into the brewery?
I would say I came from a slightly different angle than these two boys who had a huge passion that led them into the beer industry. I was an electrician, and I was doing the electrical work for the brewery before it was open. But I was out of a job. This was a side job with my dad. So I was at home unemployed living with my parents, and my dad wasn't a fan of that. So he told Tyler King, please get him out of my house and give him a job. Tyler said, no. He's not going to like what I have him doing, which would have been a professional keg washer. My dad said, don't care, get him out of the house. So I went in and interviewed with Tyler and got the job as a keg washer. So I started doing the same thing as Mr. Doug here, washing kegs. I think Doug is probably a little happy that I came in and took over that job, just standing at a single head keg washer and learning the ins and outs of that wonderful lifestyle. But yeah, I was right underneath Jay and Doug, right behind them, having those fantastic bottling days, doing all that fun sort of stuff.
Right on. I'm drinking a Mischief right now, and as one of our beers that's been produced the longest, I'm thinking the three of you have some history with this beer, and I was wondering if you could share some insights, stories, some.
Yeah, Doug, can you take this one?
Yeah, he should know. We were also never going to can a IPA. And Mischief would also never go into cans. Yeah, we're talking about Mischief and how it would never be in cans.
What about the time it had Brett in it?
Yeah, that was.
I still have a bottle.
That was the Master Stroke by Patrick Rue. Oh no, wait, that was Doug. That was Doug's story to tell. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, so if you guys want to know the story of Mischief Gone Wild, at this time I was an assistant brewer and was in early for a rack. And what we used to do was chase, correct me if I'm wrong, we would chase Saison DeLint with Saison Rue in the bright tank. Is that right? Because Saison...
We would do back-to-back Brett beers, but yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, we emptied one of them out, and I was racking over what should have been Saison Rue or Saison DeLint, and a couple barrels into the rack, I realized that the beer I was racking was not Saison Rue, but in fact Mischief. And so I had like a little bit of a panic attack and froze, stopped everything, called Tyler, and I was like, hey, I messed up. I knew I was going to get fired. I was like, this is it. You can't screw up a batch like this. And I remember Tyler kind of being like, oh, yeah, I think just keep going and we'll just make it a Brett beer. I'm like, you're not mad? He's like, nah, it's not my problem. It's Jonas's problem. Fuck that. Keep going. So
perfect. That's exactly what he would have said.
Opened up the valves again, and Patrick, being the wonderful person that he is, was like, oh, now we have a Brett Mischief, and something I always wanted to do. Probably not true, but Patrick's really good at making people feel good about mistakes. Jay has a really good one about that too. But yeah, Mischief I think is I'm happy. It's considered a core. I mean, it's not only one of the best, not only one of the best brewery beers, but I think one of the best golden strongs out there. I think the hoppiness is great. the house yeast just dries everything out so much. It's just a beautiful, absolutely beautiful beer. And the fact that you can get it in a 16-ounce can now and not a 750 makes it even better. I mean, this is a beer that's meant to be, you don't need to drink it out of the can, but like 750s, I think sometimes could be like maybe too dressed up. And it's nice to have it in this package. If it were a 12-ounce bottle, it would be the same thing. Like I want to be able to open up and have 12 ounces of Mischief. So it's pretty awesome. I drink it quite a bit.
Yeah, the can refresh has definitely done a lot for the life of this beer for sure. It's taking it to a consumable format, obviously, and kind of taking it out of the bottle cellar per se. We have so many brewery beers that end up. It's nice to put it in a more consumable package where people aren't getting it mixed up really with something else they're trying to lay down. Some interesting stories you guys have there about mistakes that brewers make and whatnot. And I could tell you that you guys making those mistakes is exactly the reason I was brought onto the brewery. So thank you for that. This is how this is I was also hired by Tyler, and my whole job is making sure those things don't happen, and then making sure that when they do happen, that we fix issues and whatnot. But
so,
I
you're
think
brought
that,
on to fix mistakes, but in the wine world, you just throw sulfites at everything, right? So that stuff doesn't happen.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. I think you're talking about natural wine, and they don't use sulfates. Oh yeah, there's a beer that Jay and I made together, or actually Jay's staff and I and Jay made. Jay and I kind of just tasted and pointed, and the lovely folks at the Rare Barrel kind of took over.
100% true.
Yeah, it is true. That's a good question. Jonathan White has a question. What's the biggest, most expensive mistake you ever made with making a beer?
Starting a brewery?
I guess it don't matter.
I think Doug referenced this a little bit. I'll go back to the brewery times, and I don't think it was a very big or a very expensive mistake, but Travis, who we've referenced earlier, he had just started at the brewery, and boy, Doug was right. He kind of teased us out when it was me, Doug, and Travis, and then Victor. We were all on the floor. I just gotta say, if there's one comment that just needs to be said during this time, that was the best of times. I mean, I still have a blast working at a brewery every day, but I mean, I still look back at those times as being some of the happiest of my life. But right, a bad day was right when Travis started. We weren't really like shift brewing, so doing 2 brews in one day, and it was a 3-vessel system. And if it wasn't Tyler, it was me brewing. So he took the early shift, and he just left one valve open that doesn't usually get left open, and a whirlpool valve. And so I started transferring from the kettle to the whirlpool, and it's a very manual system. So once you start that, you kind of got to go back to graining out the mash tun, which takes you a while. That's kind of going to be one of the last things you do. So, and that's kind of far away from everything else. So I'm graining out the mash tun. There's steam everywhere. I get down, I like shake the drum, and then I'm like, I know there's steam here, and that makes sense. Why is there steam over there? And I was like, oh, there's steam in the drain. I trace it back, going to the whirlpool. Oh, S word. Run. Close that valve, and I'm like, damn. So I lost some wort down the drain. I think this was like a Saison Delaine or a Traded Winds triple, and I did the same thing as Doug. I froze up and called Tyler, and who talked to Patrick, and he's like, oh man, we actually really need that volume. So I think it was on a Friday. I had to come in and brew on a Saturday, which was like totally chill because the taste room was open, and it's not really usually when people want to be brewing, but there's kind of a fun atmosphere to that too. So I just brewed a little half batch, and I saved the day after ruining it.
Yeah, you did. And that was the biggest one, huh? Or that's just most memorable?
Yeah, other than starting a brewery. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was...
right. That's another mistake. You know, when you say that was the best of times, I absolutely believe it. You know, I think that, you know, I could look back and, you know, for me, you know, making wine and working, you know, 120, 130 days in a row, working 14-hour days, and, you know, not needing to be motivated to do that, just living it. Like, it was fun, you know, and it was fun to like tease people that they work slow next to you and show them that you could work harder and faster. And like, and it's just about, yeah, being young and being in love with the passion, you know? And that sounds like a real magical time, honestly. Like I'm jealous. It sounds like it was a lot of fun. Not that we're
Jeremy,
not having fun now.
Could I do a quick shout out?
Yeah.
I think Victor came in here a little humble. He definitely talked the least of between Doug and I about what he was doing there. You know, his dad's like on his case to get a job. Forget all that. This guy came in with like the most dedication and the chillest attitude, and he was an electrician, which, I mean, I've been searching. I've essentially been searching for more Dougs and Victors every year of my career since stopping working with them. And I found one person who reminded me a lot of Doug, but I've never found another Victor. So this guy is a superstar. So just wanted to throw
that,
that out.
Doug. I'm gonna second that. Today I was talking to our VP of sales, and I was like telling him I was like, Victor, he's at Mammoth. He's like, oh, he's the guy who took over head brewer. And I always rate people on if I would take you into battle with me, like on my front line. I'm like, Victor is one of those dudes. Like, that guy is an animal. And it's funny because I hadn't thought about your dad in a while, and you're telling me, you know, you work first period out, and I was like, oh my God, this whole time I was thinking Victor's such a badass. And I'm like, Victor Senior, like, runs laps around you.
Yeah, that was the whole base of the work ethic thing. Never give up, never quit. So 16-hour days were the norm. So when you sorry.
So let me ask you this, and thank you, Jay, for shouting out Victor. That definitely needed to happen mid-sentence for me. Couldn't have waited to the end of the sentence. But do me a favor, dude. Each of you, if you can you tell me, you know, what lesson you learned during your time at the brewery that's really adapted to what you're doing now, or that you've been able to adapt to?
That might be my internet. Were you shooting that question at me?
I'm shooting it to all of you, so one of you jump in.
I'll go.
Cool.
I didn't work with Patrick directly, but the way he treated me as when I was bottom of the totem pole and then assistant brewer, and there were a lot more important people at the brewery than me, still getting the incredible amount of respect and care from the owner, it still resonates with me every single day. And I think that's been the biggest thing. There are the give-ins, which is the barrel aging stuff and, you know, the technical side, but from a business standpoint, I think it's just being a good person. And, you know, he's the type of person, he's the first person to admit a fault of his or if he messed up, and just really caring about everybody who works at the company. And that's what I learned the most. If I could be a fraction of Patrick when it comes to caring about other people, I consider myself successful.
Wow, that's really good.
I think his openness to letting us learn on the job and his dedication on that, even if it, you know, costs him a little bit of money, I learned more at the brewery than I think I ever will anywhere else. We had everything at our fingertips, and we were always given the opportunity to learn as much as possible. And I've seen it not be at other breweries, and so grateful that I learned so much.
Right on. What about you, Jay?
I think I learned never to trust the owner of a brewery. And I'm carrying that over for today. No, I love Pat. I think it's something that I've tried to carry over here to the Rare Barrel, but it's hire for passion and then teach for skill. Passion and personality, almost in every case, you can teach someone how to brew. Tyler King used to say, I could teach like a chimp how to brew. And he said that to me while he was teaching me how to brew. So, take it with a grain.
I was that chimp too. Yeah.
But, he's right to a certain extent. And you just rather have someone who's passionate and wants to be there working towards the same goals of creating flavorful, amazing, exciting beers than, someone who's just there, clock in, clock out. Yeah, I work at a brewery, but it's just a job. It is a job. That's what you learn working at a brewery, but being lucky to work at the brewery meant that you were lucky to have a job that means a lot and is a lot of fun.
Sorry about that. I got a bunch of fireworks going off. Shut up. Do me a favor, Jay. Can you?
I got it.
Can you take that question a step further? Like, if is there anything that you learned working at the brewery that helped you start your brewery? Like, I know that everybody had a really great relationship with Patrick. We all respect him as a person, as a business owner, the way he treats people, all that kind of stuff. But were there any lessons that you learned, or did you just go and start a brewery and completely just stumble because you didn't have any lessons learned? I mean, I don't know exactly how to frame that question, but I'm wondering, is there something that did it click for you while you're working at the brewery that I can go do this?
I think anyone who starts their own brewery, you kind of have, there's maybe like one peak of confidence, which is when you like decide to quit your job and sign a lease. And that's like when your confidence is at an all-time high. Other than that, it's just kind of, your confidence is pretty low, actually, I would say. Maybe Doug could speak to this too, but like even today, I mean, maybe especially today, I just, wax and wane on my confidence that I can do this. And, oh, hey, Ben. But I guess another lesson learned is just like Patrick always, I like the structure of the brewery. Patrick always was very passionate and a big dreamer. Maybe I'll just break it down from when I started working there. People always used to say like, oh, so you came up with like the recipes at the brewery while you were working there? And I was like, no. So it was like Patrick came up with this like kind of grand idea, which was really exciting. The ultimate beer geek, Patrick Brew. Tyler was the ultimate, like, I've been in a brew house since I was 18 years old. And, I know how to like write the recipe. Patrick says, I had a nice meal at a Thai restaurant last night. Let's make a beer like that. Tyler figures it out. And then I was executing it. And that was such a rich amount of knowledge to like draw from. But I tried to take the best of everyone I worked with. I remember when Travis came on, he had just been working at Russian River recently. And, I would do this little bit of a sneaky thing because Travis was working above me. Tyler was my boss. I kind of go up to Travis and say like, and you know, they had some different background and different opinions on beer. And so I would kind of go up to Travis and say, "Hey, Travis, what do you think we should do with this beer we're developing?" And he'd give me his opinion. And then I'd kind of walk over to Tyler's office and say, "Hey, Tyler, what do you think about this idea I just had about how to do this beer?" And I'd say just what Travis told me. And Tyler would, he'd be like, "I think that's dumb because of this." I'd walk back over to Travis and say, "Hey, Travis, are you concerned about this at all?" And I would just do that all day in between working. And it was like being in the equivalent of like an MBA program for brewing. And then when Doug came on and Victor, they kind of had a similar attitude, a passion for learning. So, you're never too old or too advanced or too accoladed or whatever, hyped up to learn more. So, I don't care if you're a master cicerone like Patrick is, or if you've worked in the industry for, 100 years, or it's your first day. If you stop asking questions, that's the first day of your demise in this industry.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and it's still, I've only scratched the surface. There's so much more you can dig into and learn in this industry, and it never ends.
Cool. I think there's a really good question here from a gentleman named Brian Harrell. It's what advice would you guys give to someone looking to change careers and get into the brewing industry? Are there steps you should take before quitting your day job? Obviously, there's steps you should take before quitting your day job. But what advice would you guys give? Because I think the part of the thing about the trying to tie all of you guys into a discussion about the brewery is it's amazing how far you all have come. But your stories is you started at the bottom, and so there's a lot of you guys interview people to be if you guys could speak to that, give some advice to some people who are looking for jobs.
I think Doug, you should take that one. That was a big career. Sorry to cut you off, Victor. Jeremy, you were freezing up a little bit, but Doug, that was a pretty big career change for you. So
yeah, it's I'm not muted, right? Okay. It's a huge shift, not just financially. This industry is not known for stockpiling your bank account with your salary. I think that should be the primary consideration, because that is a very real thing. I think the next thing, what I do when I meet somebody who wants to get in the industry, I tell them to go buy a copy of Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, because Bourdain got into cooking because he wanted to be in a kitchen. He wanted to have scars on his hands. He wanted to have burns. He wanted to be tired. He wanted to come home with his feet sore, his back aching, and go, "Damn, that was so much fun." So one of the reasons I left New York was because I was offered an internship at a brewery out there, and I wasn't able to take it. I was working 7 days a week. That was just the nature of my job. And I remember telling myself I never want to miss that opportunity again. I think any sort of part-time job at a brewery, if it's washing kegs once a week, bartending, working the door, something to where you can get a feel of what this is. I mean, a brewery, it's a funny meme that says like everybody wants to be a brewer until you have to do brewer shit. Pardon my language, but it's we're glorified janitors and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, it is a lot of cleaning, but more than anything else, you're on your feet. It is never ending. On one side of the spectrum, it's like this, like constant change, and I have to adapt and figure something out new today, and nothing's normal. Why can't things just be normal? Why can't I just have a comfortable job? And then on the other side, if you're a shift brewer, you're just making the same beer over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So it's like, make sure this is what you want to do the rest of your life. The rest of your life. not because you're unhappy with your job and this seems fun. It's because there's nothing else in the world you'd rather do than come home tired, frustrated, exhausted, achy, and all those together makes you the most grateful, happy person in the whole entire world. And it's not for everybody, but there are jobs in the brewing industry for everybody. Specifically brewing, it's a very tough job. And Jeremy, like you were saying, like it's fun when you see other people and they're not working, they're working hard and you're like, I can work harder than you. It's not for everybody, and that's not a bad thing. We are a very strange species, those of us who pursue brewing as a career and then enjoy it. And not because it's the only thing we can do or it's the only thing we know. We strive to get better at hurting ourselves, basically, having bad backs and your knees go out and all these other things. I mean, my advice, long story short, try and get like an internships are tough in California, depending on what state you're in. If you can get an internship, great. If not, see if you can get a part-time job somewhere and get a taste for what it is, because that's going to be your life. It's tough, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
I'd add to that as a more generalized statement. Just squash your ego, be humble, get ready to work hard, and have a very deep hunger for learning, because it's a whole different animal when you step into this ball game.
Yeah, I think I would echo what both the other guys said. Doug, especially your comments about that. Yeah, you gotta essentially just gotta work at a brewery before you quit your job, and you got to make sure that that's your ideal day to day. It is repetitious. It can be a lot of labor, but I also encourage you to find a brewery that you think is worth working at. You believe in their beer. You like the people who work there, and because if it's working at any brewery, I don't know. I haven't met a brewer worth their salt who's kind of just happy working at whatever brewery. They want to be a part of something big, something that the brewery has built, something that Mammoth is building, something that society's building, something that Rare Barrel's trying to build. You got to be moving forward and have fans of craft beer excited about what you're doing. If you're not at one of those breweries, it's just a little bit. It's as hard as it is working at a great brewery that you're excited about, or a young brewery like we were working at when we were at the brewery. But if it's older and not as exciting, it can be a little bit more of a soul-sucking experience.
I think we all kind of got in a little bit. We caught the wave right at the right time. It's a lot more difficult now to get into the industry.
I caught the wave first before it was cool.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult. It's not as easy to grow as quickly as we possibly did and move up within the industry. There was a lot of room for growth, I think, when we all started, and it's a little more saturated now and more difficult to move up.
I think you guys have all really good. I think you guys all had really good points. I want to just go back into bringing production brewers and production jobs, and as Doug said, there's all kinds of jobs and careers in the beer industry. So we have Mara, who would like to bring on, who's at Sierra Nevada now. He started at the brewery, was at Fig Mountain for a while, and is now at Sierra Nevada. There he is.
What's up?
What's up, Kevin? How are you doing, man?
What's up?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
I think we're all well. I'd love to hear about your journey.
My journey is totally different from everybody else's. I wasn't making beer when I started my career. The brewery was my first brewery. So I come from a journalism background. So my story starts at the Orange County Register and also the OC Weekly, which I give a lot of credit to. The OC Weekly was actually the publication that I used to work for. I was only an intern, and one of my first assignments was to go to the brewery for a cover story. So we did a cover story about the brewery. The brewery at the time was only 3 years old. It was funny because we shot a really corny cover picture of Patrick holding boxes, and to this day I still look at that picture and I laugh really hard because it's Patrick. So
I was there that day. I remember that picture.
Yeah. So I went that day. We shot photos all around the brewery. That was literally the first time I ever visited a brewery. I didn't know anything about beer at the time. I was only 20 years old. And I remember when we were done shooting photos, Patrick insisted that we would do a beer tasting, and I just had to be like I'm the intern, so I'm just like, I can't drink. I'm not 21, and so Patrick always told me, you should come back when you're 21 then. And I was like, okay, fine, and I did. And so the brewery has always been a very special place for me because that's where I actually first learned a lot about craft beer. But in terms of my career, I worked in journalism. I worked for newspapers, magazines. The journalism industry was kind of weird. It started going down a little bit, so I jumped over to the marketing side of things and worked for a couple agencies doing more or less kind of the same thing, which was telling stories. But I had a background in multimedia. My journalism degree, that was my major. My minor was in studio art, and I had a kind of a fun sense for telling stories through photos and videos and stuff like that. And long story short, I saw the brewery was hiring one day, and just decided, what the hell, just try. Because if I'm going to tell people stories, I'd like to do it for a brand or a company that I actually care about. And it just kind of came full circle. I applied. I didn't think I would hear back, but I got a lovely email back from Maureen saying that they were interested. And from there, it was just meant to be. I went in for my interview, and we had a lot of fun stories to share. And it was it was a good interview. There were formal questions like, what can you do? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? But at the same time, we were literally just kind of shooting the shit and just just talking about beer. And it was so fun. And so I just started working for the brewery, and now that job is kind of taking me to where I am now, more or less doing the same thing now, but for Sierra Nevada. But it was cool because it took my career from telling stories to telling stories for craft beer. And I learned more about beer itself and how to properly promote beer. And, that's where it is. So, yeah.
Kevin, as I think the only other person who's not making beer up here, I find it pretty interesting to work at the brewery just because there's so much our production team is actually super creative, right? And they have these really creative opinions too. So how do you balance telling the story the way you want to tell it versus communicating what Jeremy or the guys making the beer want to say? Because I know here there's so many opinions and they're valid and they're really good. And I think you can draw from them, but can you talk to that a little bit? Because that's a challenge, right? Especially in craft beer, being a marketer. I know we're
yeah. It's funny because when it comes to marketing in craft beer, it is completely different from maybe every other industry in terms of marketing. Because when I started working for the brewery, I literally thought that my primary job was just to kind of do social media and just kind of talk about it online and not really be involved with production. And it was immediately apparent that in order to do the job right, I had to go into the brew house and literally talk to the brewers directly and ask them, what are you brewing? Why are you brewing it? Tell me more about it from your end, because there's more to a beer than just the name itself or, tasting notes and things like that. When you actually go into the brew house, you see a completely different experience, which some are mostly good and some are completely bad. Like things will just completely, like things will blow up, just like you'll hear people yelling from the other side of the brew house, like, oh my God, like it's overflowing. And just like, it's like chaos. And you learn more about what it takes to actually make beer. And that's something that I didn't really know about. So I do remember, like, in my first couple of weeks of working at the brewery, I thought more or less my job was going to be, being comfortable behind a computer and just kind of, just typing away, just writing content, maybe take a picture or two. And that changed so fast because 3 or 4 days into the job, I was in the brew house for longer hours than I was actually behind a computer, just trying to understand what it really took to make the beer possible. Because sometimes there would be beers that were so ambitious that even the brewers were just kind of like looking at each other and just saying, is this even possible? And seeing them brainstorm together to finally make something and then bottling it and then tasting it like 2 months later, and you realize how amazing it is. It's kind of cool to go from step 0 to final product. And so I guess to answer your question, in order to kind of introduce creativity in that, there's one way of doing it. And I feel like a lot of breweries do this, the very basic approach of just saying like, here's a beer, it's on sale, buy it, and then there are breweries who really take the time to tell the story about just going into why that beer even came to be. And at the brewery, I feel like every beer that we were brewing was more or less just a complete experiment every time.
Yeah.
And it just made everything unique in that way. So there was something to talk about. And from there, the story becomes a marketing opportunity. So.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to bring on another brewer, but before I do that, like I have a question. I'm just dying to know an answer to. You've worked with Jeremy. I've worked with Jeremy. How would you describe? He's a creative guy, right? Look at that face. He's a creative guy. He hosts a show. What was your experience like working with our beloved Sour Jesus at the brewery? That's what I want to know.
So I remember on my second day of work, at the time, Cambria, who was the marketing manager, set me up with a one-on-one with Jeremy. And I didn't know who Jeremy was. And she's like, oh, he's the guy with the long beard that you talked about the other day. Because I don't know if you remember this, Jeremy, but on my first day I saw you. And I was like, oh, wow, it's an insane beard. I got to take a picture of that. And right away, you were just like, that's really weird. That's a really weird way to start a conversation. But I guess it's nice to meet you. And I was like, well, I fucked that up. So the next day, Cambria she insisted, like, you should really spend time with Jeremy. And I was like, okay. So I went into the Bruery Teru, the sour side of things, and I remember Jeremy actually graciously gave me a tour of the brew house itself, which was literally just a 5-minute walk around. Because I mean, if you go at Bruery Teru, it is, you walk in, she's like, here are barrels and there is beer aging in them, and then here's our tap room. And that was pretty much it. And then Jeremy just was like, all right, do you want to taste beer? I was like, okay. And so I thought it was just going to be like a quick, like, here's Frut and here's Saison Roux, and I hope you enjoyed it. But instead, Jeremy started popping nails from barrels. I thought we were going to the tap room, but instead Jeremy actually took me directly deeper into the cellar, and he started taking nails off barrels. And we started tasting things that weren't released yet. And Jeremy's insight was really interesting because he came from the wine world, which I didn't know about Jeremy before I started working. And I asked him, like, well, what do you think about this? And it was really, really cool to hear him talk about the perception of his tasting notes and such, because, you know, for him, it's a little different. You know, there's things that I do taste when it comes to being a beer fan, but from him, you know, coming from the wine world, he experiences the beer in a completely different way. And it changed my perception completely of what sour and funky beer was. And so I knew after that first day, if I really wanted an interesting work day, and I had literally nothing else to do, that was always my excuse to go back to Teru and just kind of ask Jeremy, you know, what's happening in some of these barrels? What do you think is interesting right now? Because I knew he would always have an interesting answer. So
awesome, dude. I mean, yeah, he's a fun guy to work with when his internet's working. I don't know, Jeremy, can you hear us? Are you working? Like, what's going on right now?
I can hear you guys, but I'm having a problem seeing everybody. I can't get the things to load. So I think what makes the most sense is if you bring on either Andrew Bell, our innovation manager, or Keith. Why don't we do a poll over the current people on? Who do you guys want to talk to first?
Yeah, the first name to go into the comments, they're coming on. So I'm waiting. Come on, somebody give us an answer. All right, here we go. I think we got an answer there. I'm gonna pull myself off. Hopefully, Jeremy, that keeps working. But let's see here. Here's a fun guy that a lot of you guys have met before. He has a really, actually pretty fun story, how he got to the brewery. So goodbye. I'll see you guys in a bit.
oh no, it's Keith.
Hey, Keith.
What's up, guys? How y'all doing? What's Douglas drinking up there? He keeps cracking a new one.
Some of his own goods. Never get high off your own supply.
So it's good to see all you guys again. So I guess we're kind of talking about how we got into brewing, right? How we got to the brewery. So actually started brewing back in Louisiana, back in New Orleans. Worked for Abita Brewing for 5 years. We decided to move out to California and had an interview that actually Victor was on. I don't know if he's familiar with that or remembers that, but it was like four people on a phone interview. It's I was like, okay, this is kind of overkill.
We used to be, we got to a point where we were pretty aggressive. And then when you came in person, we would also have like 4 or 5. Whoever we could round up that was free at the time, we would just gather them all together and interview you in a real mob style interview.
Yeah, so it was crazy actually to that point. The brewery actually flew me out for an in-person interview, and I was ready, prepared to do a full-on interview. And Tyler and Kevin Hammond sat down with me and ready to do an interview. And Tyler looks at me, he's like, "So you want to do a tour of the brewery?" I'm like, "Sure." It's like, okay, it's kind of a weird way to start the brewery. So we're just doing a tour of the brewery, just talking the whole time. And apparently that was the interview. And he's like, "Okay, well, when do you want to start?" I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I just wound up sitting and having beers at the bar with Kevin for like an hour and a half. And that was basically my trip out to California to basically solidify my job there.
Yeah, I think Keith
you were already, it had already been decided, I think, that you were going to have a job. So it was more of just a casual meeting in person kind of thing.
Is he crazy?
Yeah, pretty much.
He's not crazy. Let's hire him.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, how'd they miss that one?
I think Keith's interview is kind of cool, or his story anyway. Is like, you know, in my experience, and when I got to the brewery and listening to a lot of your guys' stories, is, you know, the brewery was either maybe one of your first brewing jobs, or you're coming from other small breweries into the brewery. And, you know, Keith coming from a very large, regional brewery in the South, that's a real win for.
Yes, I mean,
that can your profit.
So like when I left Abita Brewing, we were at like 200,000 barrels a year. So I mean we were running we were running two systems at that time, a 200 barrel brew house and a 100 barrel brew house, and we were cranking through beer. You know, it was a good space to get in and really learn like how to work hard and with a small team. And we only had 15 brewer and cellarmen that interchanged. So I mean, we're doing like 200,000 barrels a year, running two brew houses at the same time. So it was definitely a workhorse brewery, and we put out a lot of good beers. And honestly, I loved the years. So I think Jay was saying earlier, you know, those were the good times. Like I think it's like the first two to 3 years you're in the brewing industry. It's like those are the good times. You know, you make some really good friends. You're just partying. It's just a really good fun time. And yeah, so like I really learned a lot there. I learned a lot about a production brewery, learned a lot about bottling lines, canning lines, worked a lot in the lab that I had never seen. You know, I mean, I honestly wish I would have known going into college. So I was actually a finance major as well. And I wish I would have known I was going to be a brewer. I would have definitely made a better choice to study some kind of science or something that would help. But I had like a day experience with the insurance firm, and I was just told the lady, I was like, I'm not going to make it here. I was just like, this is not going to happen. So I walked out or told her I was leaving. And that was my only experience in the finance world. And then I saw a job posting for a brewer trainee, applied for it at Abita, got the job, and 11 years later, I'm at the brewery. So it's been a fun trip.
Keith, you were homebrewing before that, or that was your first experience? Like, how did that like translate? Because I've heard it doesn't really translate to a professional system, but like, what are your thoughts there?
Not at all. So honestly, the first time I homebrewed, I was actually underage, and I was homebrewing with my father-in-law. He's my father-in-law now, but before it was my girlfriend's father, and we were actually visiting her family's in Japan. So we're actually homebrewing in Japan. It was the first time I ever homebrewed, and at the time he didn't even know that it was illegal to homebrew in Japan. And like he gets this article in the newspaper, he sends it to me. He's like, "Oh, now we can do this." So my father-in-law actually taught me how to homebrew, really got me into homebrewing, and really got me into beer. I honestly, before drinking beers with him, I was never into beer. I was because I really didn't care for Bud Light and Coors Light. I was more of like a cocktail kind of guy, but I didn't really care for that either. But the first beer that I really had that I really loved, and it was my father-in-law gave it to me. It was Sam Adams Boston Lager, and in New Orleans at the time, it was a very, very weird beer to have, you know. But it was definitely one of the bigger breweries I was able to distribute to Louisiana, and that's really what kind of changed my whole outlook on beer. I was like, wow, like this can be a very flavorful beverage and something that also smells good, tastes good, and you can enjoy your time with it. So.
It's awesome, dude. Yeah, I was just curious because I know like a lot of our fans right now are homebrewers, right? So I think there is some aspiration to like do something. So it's always like an interesting conversation, and I always hear that's one of the things they want to know is like, how does that translate? But I've talked enough for like this whole thing. I'm gonna bring on a guy that a lot of you know and maybe you work with. I don't know for sure, but Andrew Bell, our innovation manager. So he manages our pilot systems, and a lot of the recipe creation is what he's been doing. And he's been in the SoCal beer scene for a long time. Here he is. I'm out of here.
Oh.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
Yeah. No, I really only worked with obviously Keith and Kevin, but I worked with Victor for a long time. I missed Jay by a couple months a year. I started in 2012, and then I actually interviewed with Doug and Travis shortly before I joined the brewery to be one of their first cellarmen at Society back in 2012. So No, I've known these guys for a while, but yeah, it's interesting that three of us worked in finance before brewing.
I had no idea there were so many finance majors / workers in this group. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, both Doug and I worked at Bear Stearns too, which is crazy.
Oh, wow. Wow, Damien's calling out your beard, by the way.
Yeah, I want to get rid of it so bad. Who would have thought that I would have a longer beard than fucking Victor? Excuse my language, sorry. Yeah, no, I hate it.
That was only up until about 2 weeks ago.
We got to bring back Doug's beard. That's the main thing I want to have
the
across
one.
on this. I mean,
I only started growing my beard big.
Doug's
because Doug had
original
a big
beard.
Yeah.
Doug lost his beard, and it's his girlfriend at the time, now wife's fault completely, 100%. But you know, he also like lost a lot of weight. He's clean shaven. He's basically about to be a banker again. So I think we should start a petition, get Doug's beard back, because I thought it looked great, and that's not just like, oh, it's a big beard, which, you know, can look good or bad. His looked really good, I thought.
Yeah, no, he had a really manly beard, man. Wait, I tried, but that guy had a beard. Can you guys hear me well now? I switched over to go through my phone instead of the house Wi-Fi. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, guys.
Better.
I don't know what it is, but anyway.
Jeremy, don't worry about it. I hosted while you were gone, and the reviews are in. Everyone loved it.
Yeah,
you know, it's really funny that that you've been playing that card this whole time, because it's actually what I was telling Daniel earlier today. I was like, oh, don't worry, like I got a natural co-host that's going to be on there. Either that or I'm co-hosting. But either way, it's funny that you're on it too. What I missed? Did you guys tell me? Did you guys talk about your favorite brewery beers already?
we mostly just talked about you.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
No, in your bad internet.
Yep.
All right. No, so you talked about your favorite brewery person. Now let's talk about your favorite brewery beer. Do you think we could do that?
What's it?
Doug,
I want to call on Doug, and just as a pre-story, Doug, we did talk on our like pre-chat thing before we went live about you and how you used to blend maybe like a third of a certain beer and then 2/3 of carbonated water while on the job. Maybe we shouldn't say that. Maybe we should. I don't know, but
allegedly.
Go for it.
Am I not allowed to say what I did?
Or you could say what you did, but I mean, it's fine with me. But if you could follow that up with actually like a finished professional packaged beer that, you know, either was once sold or is still sold, I don't care. But it'd be cool to talk about something that got finished, you know? That'd be cool.
What do you mean finished?
Finished, like a professional beer. Like that's what
okay.
That's what I do for a living. I make beer like, you know.
Listen here. So three of my favorite beers in the world. Hot and Roth is one of them. It went from like 2.9 to 3.1 ABV, so you could drink. I don't think you could drink a lot of it, but it's like you could have like multiple pints, and you weren't, you know, it wouldn't spike your BAC, so you weren't being unsafe or anything. And it was just it was delicious. That's number one. It was delicious. And the fact that it was delicious and that you could drink a lot of it was a lot of fun. So yeah, what I would do is I always have like a huge water cup, and I would fill it with water and just do like a little splash of Hot and Roth in there. And so I would have beer flavored water. Sounds crazy. Try it.
No, that's great.
We've been trying to recreate it at Society with a beer called the Scamp, but Hot and Roth I think it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever tasted in my life. It's got the perfect balance, or had the perfect balance of Brett plus tart plus carbonation plus it's light but also has body. Saison de Lint was and still is one of my favorite. When I left, maybe like a year after Jay was nice enough to send me like a case of it or something with some vintage bottles in there. God, it's so hard. Favorite brewery beer. They're all so incredible. I mean, that's I think the brewery really defines like why a lot of us love beer, because there are these cores like the Mischief, which I just cracked another one of. And those are like the daily drinkers, but part of the fun of craft beer is the exploration. And there's no end to exploration with craft beer. Talk about pushing the boundaries in a good way and not just making like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's really well thought out beer. When I was there, I'm going to say Hot and Roth and Saison de Lent.
Nice.
Those are my favorite. Right now, it's still Mischief.
Cool. What about you, Victor?
Hummus lager.
Hummus
Confession.
Lager.
Yeah. Always Confession. Best, my favorite beer we ever made. The original Confession. Best beer ever. And 2-year-old Saison Roux.
Okay.
And Hot and Roth.
You like the Saison Roux with some age on it, huh?
Yeah, not fresh. It had to dry out. It'd be the driest, even more so than Saison de Lent. It'd be super dry. A head on it that was that thick in the glass.
Right.
Super funky, super dry, super amazing.
Nice.
But day to day, it'd be Hummus lager or Hot and Roth when it was the original.
Right on. What about you, Kevin?
Ooh. I think my answer is always mashed and coconut, actually. The second iteration of it. The only reason I say that is because, one, I love coconut. And two, for the second iteration of mashed and coconut, I remember we brought a bunch of little ovens in and decided to toast that coconut instead. And the brewery smelled like coconut for probably a week and a half. Every time I walked in and out of the brew house, it just smelled like coconut, and it was the best week of my life. And so when the beer was finally done, we tasted it in sensory, and I was just so blown away because I thought it was so delicious. Perfect blend of that chocolate flavor with coconut. It was perfection. So mashed and coconut always will be like one of my favorite brewery beers.
Nice. What about you, Jay?
Well, I think Doug might have said something like this earlier, but I do feel like the beers coming out of the brewery have gotten better over time, and that's a credit to you all who are still working there. But we still made a lot of like very, very good beers while we were there.
Absolutely.
And one beer I'd like to shout out is Oud Tart. Which is it went from Tyler King's homebrew recipe to a carboy to barrels. It's the beer that got me into sour beer. People ask me like, what got you into sour beer? And it's like the sour beer that ever hurt my lips. Hit my lips. Did I say hurt my lips? Hit my lips. Was Oud Tart out of a barrel, and I think it was like batch 2, and that changed everything for me. That's why I now own and started a sour brewery, and I think I haven't like ran the numbers or anything, but it might be like the most award-winning sour beer of all time. Sour beer's a relatively new category at GABF and World Beer Cup. And Oud Tart's like right up there with, heavy hitters like La Folie and things like that. So that being the first sour beer I ever tasted undoubtedly changed my life. So I got to put that at number 1. And shout out to Tyler for shepherding that along the way over the years.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just didn't throw my thing in there. Like for me, before I got to the brewery, Saison Roux and Oud Tart were real big standouts for me. I wasn't much of a stout drinker. It wasn't really my palate. Then when I got to the brewery, I got to try Ruse for the first time, and then I got to blend Ruse, and I got to finish that beer, and that's become still one of my just favorite beers. It's really complex, and then falling in love with Hottenroth. I don't know. Those are the things, and I strive to figure out ways to keep making those beers better. I want them to be traditional to the brewery, but I also want them to continue to evolve. And that's the gift that I have, and it's also the hard thing that I have to do. Like I have the ability to take those to a better place, but also the challenge and the respect that has to be had for what comes before.
Hey, Jeremy, real quick, can I ask you, because I know you've been really involved with like the beer wine hybrids, which is kind of a unique category for beer. Do you have a favorite that the brewery has made in the last 2 or 3 years in terms of the beer wine hybrid?
Yeah, I mean
the rare barrel.
Yeah, personally, I do. Pardon, Jay. What was that?
I was just joking. No, what? No, it's your turn.
Oh, I didn't hear it. I would have laughed. I just didn't hear it. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think everybody's got something that that they're proud of, and I think we made a beer called Bourgeois Noir about 2 years ago, and it exceeded expectations, and I knew it. I knew it before it was bottled. We were tasting it in barrel, and I was like, holy shit, this is exceeds the concept. This exceeds what Patrick and I were planning. And I talked about it a little earlier today, talking with Paul from Cloudwater, but I was like, at that point, my whole journey then was like, how do I not screw this up? How do I put this lightning in the bottle? And we were successful doing it, and so successful that I've, since then, brought in the same grapes and tried to do the same things, and what's in barrel right now is not what it was, and so that for me is like, that's my one beer. I've made hundreds of beers that I think are really good. I've made 30 or 40 beers that are quite honestly not good at all, and that goes with it. But that one beer, I think the team couldn't have done anything better, and that was truly lightning in a bottle. It's chance, and I like to say that skill has something to do with it, but if it was all skill, I'd be able to reproduce it. So it's not all skill.
Jeremy, though, I gotta say, when the beer you say is like, oh, this many are not good. You're not good as everyone else is great.
Yeah,
you have extremely high standards. So like, it's to your palate. Like, you guys aren't releasing beers that aren't good. It's all good, but you release so many beers across the spectrum of different flavors and ingredients, and you're so adventurous that, like, I just want to point out you're selling yourself short there a little bit.
Well, I think I'm my own worst critic, right? And I would argue to say that Jay, you are as well, and the rest of you are as well. Like, I'm sure.
I'm my best critic, but go ahead.
Yeah, well,
I think we all share a little bit of that. We're all a little bit hypercritical of our own beers, and people are always asking which is your favorite. And every time you taste your own beer, you're super critical about your own beer, even if they say it's good. So I think we all share that same trait.
Andrew, real quick.
I'm pretty happy with Society's beer.
I am too.
Sorry, I misspoke. My bad.
I don't make it.
Hey, Andrew Bell, what's your you've been at the brewery for a long time, and you've had your hand in a lot of beers. Like, what's your favorite beer brewery's ever done?
That's a tough question. Yeah, I've been here for 8 years now. The easy ones to like kind of categorize, like before I started working there, the Vitus series, like the early grape or wine beer hybrids. Like, I still think that even the current ones are, some some of my favorite beers that we've done. The old ones were great. The current ones are great. It's just a really fun and unique thing that we can put our stamp on and, you know, work with our farmer friends, so to speak, with, you know, the current harvest. But as far as other beers, the original like Bottleworks 12 was pretty epic, I thought. I was a big fan of that. Doug seems to disagree. That and the Wanderer like were huge for me. And then like as far as like more sessionable beers that were made before I started, like 7 Grain Saison I liked quite a bit. Just like easy drinking, 5% alcohol, slightly bitter Saison. As far as beers that have been made like since I started working here, I'm not going to talk about my favorite, but let's just say ones where I thought I did a good job and other people thought I did a horrible job, and maybe Victor can guess which one this might be. Any guesses?
There could be a lot. I can start.
I'm actually pretty harsh on the beers, but there's been like one time where it's been like I thought this was good and everyone thought it was shit, which was Liter of Cola. I'm still stand behind that beer.
How dare you?
I just thought about that beer today. We were just talking about Liter Cola with weird cola flavored.
Yeah, I'd like to share something about that beer because that beer came out in 2015. You know, the same year I came onto the brewery, and maybe about midway through that first year for me. And you're right, I didn't like the beer. I don't like that beer, but I respect the hell out of that beer because that beer was exactly what it was concepted to be. And when I tasted that beer, I knew I didn't like it, but I knew that I was working with talent. I knew that, like, holy shit, like these guys here that I'm working with, that I'm still trying to figure out who they are and trying to understand how this team works. Like these guys know what they're doing, you know, because to make a beer that tastes like a diet soda, isn't that what the concept was? I mean, like,
yeah. With all real spices and citrus, I might add.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't like it either, but I respect the shit out of it.
And the most artificial thing here was Cinnamar.
I don't know which one I would put higher on the bar, 2 Messins or a Liter of Cola, because the concept behind both of them was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many beers that I've been happy with that have not done well. It's usually I've been like, okay, that's fine. And then, you know, people think it's good or, you know, at least decent. I'm usually way harsher on the beers, but that's like, I think that's the only one I can think of where I'm like, this hits exactly what it should be. And people didn't love it, so to speak. So that was kind of a bummer, but yeah, there have been some good ones. Geriatric Hipster Club was pretty fun. That one was a good one. Imperial Cabinet, all of them, like great beers. So been happy with those. And then Hellas, easy drinking.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming and spending some time with us. I'm not wrapping up right now, but I wanted to pose it. Is there anything you guys wanted to talk about, or any cool stories you have, or any insights you have? Or I want to start with Jay because Jay's always got something.
Yeah, so we've got, you know, during this whole thing, we've got our private chat amongst all the people on the panel. And boy, you could sell tickets to this one, but Doug on the private chat thought I was going to tell another story earlier, which I didn't. So I'm going to tell it now, which was
biggest financial mistake ever.
No, it was this is 2010. It must have been there then, if 2008, 2012. What, Doug? You're shaking your head no. 2008?
2009. 2008?
That's the wrong year. But
all right.
It's 2000.
Anybody else got anything?
All right. Let's just call it 2010. The Giants, San Francisco Giants, my favorite lifelong baseball team, were in the playoffs. and they were going, towards the World Series, and so I took like a bunch of time off, and I switched shifts and everything just to like be at home and watch the games. And anyway, long story short, they won the World Series 3 times in 5 years. Neither here nor there. But my yearly review came out, and I worked my ass off, and I did a good job, I think. And Tyler gave me a great review. He's like, "You did this great. Everything was great. Everything was great." And then he just had one piece of criticism, and it was, you kind of like worked your schedule around the Giants World Series run, and that wasn't like ideal. And even though I got like this like 99% score on my review, I still said to him in the office that day, I was like, I have no regrets. I wouldn't change a thing. I didn't say like, oh, that's fair. Like I hear you. That's an understandable criticism. I was like, you know what? Like given the same chance, I do the exact same thing.
Here's my side of the story.
That was one of my favorite moments. Okay, yeah, go for it, Doug.
We'd be like closing up the brewery, winding up hoses, and Jay would come to me with like the same way he talks right now. He's like, "Hey, Doug." Like, "Hey, what's up, Jay?" He's like, "I'm going to be calling in sick tomorrow. I don't feel very good right now." I was like, "What the hell?" Like, you don't call in sick a day before, but okay, whatever. And then I had to double brew for Jay, and it kept happening. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I remembered Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I was like, I started trying to watch every single game. I was like, I guarantee you, Jay's dad flew him up there, and he's going to be at one of those games. I know he's a big Giants fan. Yeah. Double brews by myself. I'm glad the Giants won, because if they didn't, I would have been really upset. How about the time you put all the grapes down the drain when Tyler told you not to, and it was a 20-hour day, and you had to hire somebody to come in, and then you bought us like nice bottles of whiskey after that. How about that one?
I did?
Yep. You're like, "Sorry, I made your day long." You took the drain. You took the drain. We did one of the, I don't remember which wine beer it was, but Tyler was like directly to us. He goes, "Whatever you do, do not put the grapes down the drain. Put them in the grain bins outside." And the second he left the brewery, you like looked around and you're like, nah. You took the grapes out, and all the grapes went down the drain and clogged it. And it plugged the brewery because it had that full curve around it. It plugged the brewery. We tried snaking it. We had to call professional plumber, and it set back the brew. So it made everyone's day really long. Yeah, it made everyone's day like a 16, 18-hour day. So you came in the next day. Actually, you know what it was? It was Deschutes. What's their imperial stout with like licorice?
The Abyss?
Yeah, you brought in Abyss for everybody. You're like, "I got this when I was working at Bevmo. I'm so sorry for making yesterday so shitty."
I kind of remember that part. I don't remember like openly disrespecting like Tyler's order. And I also should say I don't remember like screwing Doug over like the night before and saying like, "Sorry, I'm calling in sick."
Sorry, I had to pull him off. I'm a big Dodger fan. I'm so I'm just like,
that was beautiful.
Like, this is fucking terrible. Like I'm actually gonna. I'm sorry, dude. I think we're starting to run a little bit long. I didn't mean to cut anyone off. I definitely don't like the joke.
Oh, you didn't mean to. You didn't mean to cut anyone off. Okay.
It was accidental. No, but so we're starting to get a little long on this thing. I just want to thank everyone for coming on. I'm going to be the bat. I'm going to say, hey, like, this is time. It's time to go. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. it was actually pretty interesting. Like I didn't even know everybody's story, so it was pretty fun. That being said, I just want to kind of like talk a little bit about my experience at the brewery. Like everything we do is very like intentional, and there's a purpose and a reason. And that being said, if you go to thebruery.com/jobs, we have a few openings right now. So if you're looking for a career in beer, feel free to head to that URL, and there might be an opportunity for you. I'm just kidding, but yeah, I mean, Jeremy, this is your show. I don't want to end it with me talking. So, any final words or last questions, last thoughts? What's going on, man?
Yeah, I guess I'll just delete my private message that's saying, again, guys, thanks for helping me get hired to fix all of the stuff that y'all created at your time at the brewery. I actually think that there's a cast of characters out there that not single-handedly, but as a team, really put the brewery brand on the map. And that starts with Pat and Tyler, and goes into a handful of you all that we have here right now. And I couldn't thank you guys enough for what you've added to this brand. And it's almost like Daniel and I were talking about what this would look like, and we're almost likening it to a coaching tree, if you will. Like you got a Bill Parcells or something like that, and I don't know who Belichick is. I don't know if it's Goodwin or Constantine are up here. I'm not sure it's either one of them. I might be. It might be me. Okay. So, but the point being, we wouldn't be where we are at without all of you. And I'm really delighted and happy to call you all friends. And I just want to thank you guys for spending a little bit of time with us. And I also want to apologize. I owe you guys all the apology of Victor. I know you're at last minute addition, but for the rest of you, we had this plan 3 weeks ago, and I had to cancel it for multiple reasons. If it's not COVID related, then it's social related, and all kinds of other things that are going on. So I just wanted to thank you guys, from not only the bottom of my heart, but from for the brewery. Thanks for your time tonight. So, yep. What do you got?
Could I say one thing before we go?
You can.
Yeah.
Maybe on behalf, Doug's saying no. On behalf of everyone who used to work at the brewery, I just got to say, I think, we share a bunch of stories, and the reason we're all on this and have done multiple events with each other and all this stuff is because we had the best time working at that company. The beer continues to be incredibly innovative. And I'll say it again, the Rare Barrel would not be a brewery if the brewery wasn't a brewery. And so I'm proud of the past that we had there, and also the future that Jeremy and everyone else is creating. And I tell him this in person, in private, every time we hang out together. I'm so proud of the beers he's making and that you guys are making in the direction of the company. So just thank you guys for having us, and keep up the great work.
I'm going to echo that. Society wouldn't be around either. I mean, that's where I met my business partner. We already mentioned it and we talked about it, but those are foundational moments of my life. And I know for a fact, if I didn't have that job at the brewery, Society wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a lot of the values at Society if I hadn't worked there. For me in my life, it'd be a different world. So I couldn't be prouder and more honored to be part of the brewery. And it's really incredible, like you said, the family tree that it's created. I mean, it's a foundational place in our community, in our industry. It's pretty awesome.
Doug, that was kind of my moment, and I think you stepped on it.
I want to
How
say
are the Giants doing?
Wow. Well, I'm going to say something real quick. Jay and Doug's approach to what they just said it completely embodies what the brewery is. We have fun, we poke fun at each other, but at the end of the day, we love beer, and that's what it's all about. And I would not be where I am today without the brewery. So I echo that a third time. It's an incredible place to be. It was one of the best experiences of my life, and I think we all agree that without this little place, our lives would be totally different. So cheers to that.
And we don't have enough. I'm hearing we don't have enough time for Victor to say anything. So let's wrap it up.
Oh, and one more thing. I just want to say how much I appreciate everybody here, and I love each and every one of you. Victor, I miss you. I'm going to take credit for hiring you. Jay, I'm going to take credit for making you a better person because of who I am.
Humble brag.
Some of my best brewery stories are Jay and Doug brewery stories, so I carry that with me right here every single day. And people are probably tired of me telling those Jay and Doug stories, but I love to tell them anyways.
All right, fellas.
Whoa, that's crazy. Hold on 1 second. So on our private chat, Doug just said, "Have you all ever seen Bridesmaids?" And then on the public chat, he said, "This is like that scene in Bridesmaids."